Hi, welcome to this lesson. So in this lesson, we are going to be in this lesson and in the lessons that follow this lesson, we are going to be looking at loops. Okay, it's a very important concept. It's very important in your JavaScript, in pretty much any programming language, because loops let you save a lot of lines of code and time. Okay, you'll see how in just a minute. So what are loops? So loops allow a programmer to execute, okay, the same statement or set of statements again and again for either either the number of times mentioned or until the condition becomes false. Okay, there are two different types of these things. Okay, so what happens is you can just write the statements, number of statements, set of statements just one time, and you can execute these statements multiple times, keep executing them. For example, if you want to execute the statement 10 number of times, you can just tell your browser to execute those statements 10 number of times and it will happen. Or you can tell your browser to execute the statements until the condition that you've given is false, and that will happen as well. Okay, so you can do something like that. And there are several looping statements in JavaScript. There is the for loop, and there is the while loop, there is the do while loop, like that. So these are the three loops that are present in JavaScript. But we'll look at each of these loops at a time. Okay, so one loop at a time. So basically, any loop, this is what it does. It checks for a condition. Okay, and as long as that condition is true, it'll execute the statements within the loop. Okay, so it'll keep executing, and once the condition becomes false, it'll stop executing and it'll move on to the line of code outside the block. Okay, outside the loop block. So that's what happens. Just like your condition statement, there are blocks in here as well. So let's look at that. So let's first look at the for statement now. Okay, the for loop now, not statement. It's called for loop now, and it's a little bit complicated. It's not very easy to understand, so it's better if I'll just give the syntax first. Just understand this. Just look at the syntax for now. You probably won't understand anything, but just bear with me. I'll teach you how it works later on. Okay. So the for statement syntax is as follows. There is first initiation like this. Okay. Sorry, not initiation. Initialization of variable like this, and there's another comma, and you can not set a semicolon, and you can either give a space or not give a space, and you can give your condition next. Okay, the condition that has to be met for your statements to be executed. Okay, so these conditions have to be true if the loop has to continue executing, and after that you have to give the increment like this. Okay, and obviously you're going to open your flower brackets and you're going to give your statements like this. That's fine. Now, this is how it works. Okay, I'll teach you how this works. Okay, I understand that it's very confusing right now, but I'll give you an example so you understand how it works. So let me show you an example. So basically, please take a note of this. I'll keep this inside of my comments so you can make a note of it if needed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a program that displays the numbers from 1 to 5 continuously in a loop. Okay, so in a loop it'll keep executing, and you're going to get a display of 1 through 5 like that. So to do that, I'll first declare and initialize a variable I. Okay, and assign it to 1. So that's the initialization part. So initialization is basically what is, you have to declare and assign a value. The value is mostly a number, right? Number to a variable. So that's the initialization variable. So that's initialization. So it can be a variable like I or something like that, or it can be a variable like num, any of those things. So you have to first declare it like this, and you can assign it to 0, 1, any of those things. Okay, so that's your initialization. And then there is the condition. Okay, the condition is basically saying until when. So until when the loop should get executed. So basically you can say until I is 5 or something like that. So how you would write that is until I is less than or equal to 5. So it will get executed from when I is 1 to when I is 5. So that's your condition. And then finally, you can give your increment. Okay, so right now I've given a condition that says I is less than or equal to 5, right? So, but right now I is 1. How would I become 5? If 1 has to become 5, it has to get incremented, right? So after that, you have to give I plus plus or plus plus I, something like that, to make sure that your variable gets incremented. Okay, so usually we use I plus plus like this. Okay, so that's how it works. First of all, the initialization is going to be when the loop starts. So let's say the loop starts. So first of all, the initialization is going to be executed. And then the condition is going to be executed. But after that, the increment is not going to be executed. Okay, because if I give I plus plus, it's not going to be executed. First of all, it's going to execute the statements, and when it comes to the next time, by the time it comes to the next, the increment would have been executed. Okay, so that's how that happens. I'll show you how that works. So for the first time, if I is 1, if you use I inside of your statements in any way, I is equal to 1 is going to be taken up, and then by the time it comes again for the second iteration of the loop. So okay, so executing loops is called iteration. Okay, so when it executes the first time, it's called the first iteration. When it executes the second time, it's called the second iteration, and so on and so forth until the nth number of iteration. If this was n, any number, this can be even 100. It's completely up to you. So until the iterate, and it'll keep going for the iterations, and every time before it goes for the next iteration, the increment would have been would have been executed. Okay, so this increment, it can be anything, you already know, right? It can be even I is equal to I plus 1. It can be I plus equal to 1, or it can be I plus equal to 3. So basically, I starts with 1, and after that 1 plus 3, it becomes 4. It becomes 4, and then 4 plus 3, it becomes 7, and so on and so forth. So you can do it like that. Absolutely, you can give any condition, any increment condition in here. It's completely up to you. You can also give any condition in here as well. Okay. So the increment statement, this increment statement is executed every time after the loop runs. So once the loop starts running, for when it comes back for the second iteration, this increment statement, it will be executed the first time like that. So it's always one time behind. Okay, it's always lagging behind the condition statement and the execution of the statements like this. Okay. So the initialization statement is executed at the start of the loop. I already told you, right? The initialization is executed at the start of the loop. The increment statement is executed after the loop is run. The condition statement will be executed before the statements are executed. Okay, so if the condition is not met, the statements would not be executed. So that's when your condition statement will be executed. So the condition statement is always going to be executed, even if it was false, even if the condition was false, it's still going to be executed once before it comes up with the result false. If it was false, it'll just come to the next line of code like this. That's not a problem. Okay, so let's look at an example now. Okay, so I already told you that I'm going to display numbers from 1 to 5, right, continuously. So for what I'm going to do is, I can declare it inside of here as well. Declare the initialization variable inside as well, or I can declare it outside like this. It can be any variable. It can be I, it can be num, it can be just anything. It's just a proper variable. I can declare it like this, or I can declare it inside like this as well. Okay, I'll save a line of code if I do it like this. So let I is equal to 1. Okay, and then a semicolon. Always remember that there's a semicolon after that, and you can either give a space or not. I'll just give one for readability. And then if as long as I is less than or equal to 5, which is our condition, and then the increment is going to be I++, which is going to be executed after the line of code is executed, I'll just do a console.log of I. So what happens is in the first iteration of the in iteration 1, okay, I is equal to 1 is first executed, and is 1 less than or equal to 5? That's true, so that's fine. And then what it'll come is it'll come and do a console.log of 1 like this, and after that it'll do I++, and so now I is 2. Okay, and then it'll go back and there's iteration 2. Now I is now 2. Okay, is 2 less than or equal to 5? That is still true. And after that it's going to do a console.log of 2, and then now I++, so I is equal to 3. And then iteration 2 is going to happen, iteration 3 is going to happen. So now I is actually 3. Is 3 less than or equal to 5? That's still true. And then there's going to be an I++, I is equal to 3 plus 1, which is equal to 4. Okay, and then iteration 4, now I is equal to 4. Is 4 less than or equal to 5? That's still true. And then it's going to do I is equal to 4 plus 1, which is equal to 5. Okay, now the iteration 5. I will be 5 now. Is 5 less than or equal to 5? Yes, it's still true because it's equal to. And then it's going to do I is equal to 5 plus 1 is 6. It'll come to iteration 6. Now I is 6. Is 6 less than or equal to 6? Now it's a false. So that's it. And it'll completely stop and go outside the block. Okay, it'll come here. It'll come to this next line of code. It'll go outside the block. So that's how your for loop works. So these are the iterations of your for loop. If it had hundreds of it, this is how it works. So that's the number of lines of code your browser is capable of executing. See, I got 1 first, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. So it just keeps executing like that. Alright, so that's the basics of your for loop. Okay, so the loop ran 5 times, and each time it checked the condition like this, and as long as the condition was true, it kept executing it and incrementing it and everything, and the minute it became false, it stopped the execution and came out of the loop. So that's how that works. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. I will talk more about the if loops in the next lesson. I'll see you there. Thank you.